Splatoon continues to be the blueprint on how to foster a new IP on the traditional end in the modern era. Full stop, no real comparisons here. Splatoon 3 solidifies that. Let's talk about it. Quick question, as a Nintendo fan, more often than not, would you prefer that they work on new IP, or would you rather they continue to foster their established franchises? And a bit of a follow-up question for people that prefer Nintendo to focus on creating new games over the classics: what was the last new Nintendo property that truly won you over? And I say this because for me, while a lot of the newer games and new IP that Nintendo has revealed in the past couple of years have caught my attention, none have caught my attention and retained it like Splatoon has. Splatoon feels like the only new Nintendo IP on the block that is straddling the line between both ideologies. Despite this, Nintendo fans don't seem to champion it as much as I would expect, given the amount of Nintendo fans I see complaining about Nintendo's focus on their Pokemons, Marios, and Zeldas. And let's not even get into all the Nintendo haters that bring this up as a criticism. Obviously, Splatoon is on its third entry, so by no means is it an entirely new IP, but at the same time, it's only a bit over 5 years old, which in a lot of cases would still amount to maybe one sequel in a modern Nintendo franchise in the early days of its life. Splatoon, though, is on track to average a new game every 2 to 3 years, and not only that, but each new game noticeably and meaningfully improves on the last, and it accomplished all of this up until this point without the need to reinvent the wheel each time. How and why? Well, it's pretty simple actually, and obviously it starts at the production of the original Splatoon. Released in 2015, the first Splatoon was the product of an experimental initiative at Nintendo EPD called The Garage, which was a pitching process that had small teams of developers in different roles at EPD work on ideas in their free time with the intent to eventually bring them forward to higher-ups to decide whether they can turn into full-on Nintendo projects or not. All told, the first Splatoon game took about 11 months to create and was a massive success, selling nearly 5 million units on Wii U, which, as many of you know, is an insane penetration rate when considering the amount of Wii U's in homes at the time. Not long after, in 2017, alongside the full rollout of Nintendo Switch, Splatoon 2 was announced, and even then it was obvious that Nintendo was making a clear next step on a visual level. Once the game was released and completed, its rollout cycle had significantly more content in the base game, and to add to all of that, it was further supported with paid DLC that dramatically increased the amount of single-player content as well as some new cosmetics for fans of the main multiplayer experience, including new outfits and a new character type. All of this is only scratching the surface on how good of a job Nintendo does at maintaining Splatoon's relevance. On top of all of that, Splatoon's direction has almost always been a direct result of the community. This is the case in more ways than one. To draw an obvious parallel to another popular Nintendo franchise to drive home the point, a common complaint with the Pokemon fanbase is that IP's success doesn't benefit the quality of the games released in a positive way, to them at least. But Splatoon is on the complete opposite end of this criticism in this regard because of the aforementioned technological improvements made so far. More importantly, and uniquely though, is how the fans impacted the outcome of Splatoon 2 on a narrative level. The outcome of the final Splatfest in the original game determined the story of the following game, and in the case of Splatoon 3, we know that the outcome of Splatoon 2's final major Splatfest was the direct influence for the direction of the entire world of Splatoon 3, with it being a direct result of Team Chaos winning the final Splatfest in that game. This level of fan engagement is completely unprecedented in the realm of Nintendo, even in the wider scheme of gaming at large. Not many companies do much better if they're anywhere close to that to begin with. At the same time though, Splatoon is somehow one of the franchises that resists the most when it comes to surrendering to the desires of fans in other areas. It's notorious amongst a sect of the gaming community for the way it handles traditional aspects of the shooting genre like matchmaking and game types. The reasons that the developers are citing being that they believe Splatoon's appeal is at least partially due to this curation. They've made some compromises, having since allowed players to fast forward, say, Sheldon's weapon diatribes, lessening the window for the automatic game mode rotations, and a few other small changes in the name of custom player experiences, but ultimately, they mostly maintain that curation first approach. Some think this is a kink in their otherwise impenetrable armor, but in my opinion, it's yet another strength, and here's why. I say this a lot, but the vast majority of the online fan base of pretty much anything is dumb. And this especially comes into view when you realize that the most vocal fans in pretty much any online community are typically the most toxic, self-important ones that believe that, for whatever reason, their view on the game is the objective one, no matter what. While I think listening to fans can contribute to the continued growth of successful franchises, the creators ultimately have a better understanding of what they need to do to maintain the momentum of the franchise they created. After all, they created the franchise, and even the people that are suggesting that they know what's best for the franchise fell in love with those creators' original visions. I can't think of a single major franchise that has successfully listened to fans from top to bottom and not come out on the other side anything other than a parody of itself. Maybe Sonic Mania, but even then, Sonic Forces all but undid any positive growth attained through that experience. The trick here is balance, and I think Splatoon has the best balance of the devs paving their own path while allowing fans to help guide the way alongside them. With all of that said, the jury is mostly out on Splatoon 3. We do know from the footage showcased so far that Nintendo is continuing to progressively improve the game's release on a technological level, and on a superficial level, we know that they again continue to improve the options made available to players to create a character they can identify with. Unlike long-running, even more successful, equally as Japanese franchises like Monster Hunter. And yes, I am salty about this in Monster Hunter Rise especially, but I digress. Again, all of this said, we don't know for sure how that growth will translate to the gameplay. There are some ways we can guess based on what we've seen though. It's pretty likely that two things will come to pass that I think are excellent decisions for a game like Splatoon 3. One, the core experience of the multiplayer PvP is remaining largely intact. We see small changes being made in the way of new weapon types and the other expected ways like stages, specials, and sub-weapons, and we even see them introducing a new respawn system of sorts, but on the whole, this is the same experience as the last two games, and in a series this young that also happens to be well tested and approved by its base, this is brilliant. Two, they look to be drastically changing their approach to their single player. The Splatoon single player experience up until this point has been designed with a few Mario-ish hub world sections, a series of levels with many sandboxes centered around a given theme that need to be completed to defeat the world's boss, or in the case of the Octo Expansion, until you found the route to the surface. Splatoon 3, on the other hand, looks to be changing that. Based on the footage we see in the initial trailer, the hub world at the very least is less segmented than previous games in the Splatoon series. We don't know enough to say whether levels themselves are changed at all, but the point of a trailer like this is to set the tone for the game being showcased, so the more open nature of this area means something. The single player experience in some way will feel more interconnected, and that I think will do wonders for how the game's scope feels. Before, Splatoon levels felt like tech demos for the mechanics in the game. They were fun and everything, but it didn't really feel like a full-on Nintendo level platformer like I believe Splatoon always had the potential to be. With this change, the addition of the Salmonid companion, the fact that they opened the reveal with a major focus on the single player from the beginning, first for the series as well, says to me that Nintendo is putting in work to bolster this game's single player offering. Something that I and many other Splatoon fans, perspective, long-lasting or otherwise, have been asking for. And that's what makes this change and every other change they've made to the series thus far so smart. Most importantly, changes don't negatively affect already established fans, and they almost certainly win over a lot of new ones. Splatoon always had the potential to appeal to a more casual base than it currently does in a real way, with its single player campaign alone in a similar way to how people interface with Pokemon. Even if the major draw intended by the developers is the PvP, the single player mode getting the full-on AAA Nintendo platformer treatment just opens the game up to being beloved by people that love games like that. People that can ultimately take or leave the multiplayer, but if the single player is robust enough, the $60 buy-in could still feel worth it to them, and that's pretty big for Splatoon 3 and its potential sales. I think all of this, alongside the work the developers put into making meaningful changes as quickly as they did, is what makes Splatoon stand heads and shoulders above its contemporaries, and Splatoon 3 only looks to be doubling down on that with what we know so far. It's still a ways off for sure, with its release being slated for 2022 and no further information beyond that, but I'm willing to bet this will only be solidified further and further the more we learn about the game leading up until its release next year. But those are my thoughts. What do you think of Splatoon as a franchise, and do you disagree? Maybe you feel like another franchise made by Nintendo or another developer is given more care and is evolving faster than Splatoon. Let me know that and more in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button, leave a comment, again, that helps with the algorithm, and share it with a friend that also enjoys Nintendo and would like to try new franchises but hasn't given Splatoon a try for one reason or another. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for more videos like this every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, that's it for me. See you next week.